Hey folks, I want to tell you a story. This happened a long time ago, 22, 23 years ago. It's one of those stories that I'll always have. It's one of those things that I've done that has been forever etched into my memory. It was a Saturday in the middle of the summer. It was a rainy day. And my girlfriend and I at the time, we went to a city. We went to a city for a wedding reception. And while we were in the city, we got, of course, I got the nice hotel room downtown, and we had a nice meal, and we had wine, and I'm trying my best to impress this person. I think we'd only been dating about a month or so. And like I said, I'm trying my best to impress her. As we walk down the street on our way to the wedding reception, a fella comes up to us asking for money. And remember, my brain is in the place of, I want to impress this girl. So I open my wallet, I reach in, I grab $20, and I give him the $20, and have a great night. And then we keep walking. He follows us. He follows. And there's a few of us together, and this guy keeps following us. He keeps following us. He keeps following us. And we get about 2 blocks, and finally, he just won't leave us alone. And so I turn around and say, "What do you want? I've got no more money for you." And he just walks away. He turns, he stops, he says, "Thank you." Turns back and he walks away. Now everybody around me had a great laugh. The girl I was dating had a great laugh. I thought I was king of the world. He followed me for 3 blocks just to say thank you. Now, I think about that story a lot. And when I do, I think of what I could have done differently. I think of who I was at the time and who I am now. And I think about how I wish I was never that person that I was that night. But I realize that what I did that night was that I used that man. I used that gentleman as a prop. I didn't give him the money because he needed it. I didn't give him the money because I was being loving and altruistic. I didn't give him the money because I cared about him. I gave him the money because by giving him the money, it would show this girl how awesome I am, how generous I am, how rich I am. He was nothing more than a prop to me that night. I recently stumbled across a story about the Edmonton Police Service. Now, they've made the news a couple of times in the last couple of days. They're taking homeless people to shelters. The weather up in Edmonton has dropped so drastically that they're afraid people are going to freeze to death on the streets, and so they're rounding them up. Now, one story I read was there was a group of homeless people who were having a meal inside a covered area, an enclosed building, and a local group was there. They were there, and they had prepared a nice hot meal for them. The police arrived, made them stop eating, and took them to a shelter. The other story I read was that the police showed up at homeless camps, these little tiny homeless communities that sort of come together in times like this, where they're sleeping outdoors or sleeping in tents and sleeping bags, and they gather together for safety and for protection and just to be there for each other. And the police have shown up and taken the homeless people away from their camps to send them to shelters. Now that action in and of itself, I'm not going to get into judging that. It sounds like they're doing it for the right reasons. But for those people that were living in those camps, their tents, their sleeping bags, all of their gear, everything they own, dumpster. Thrown in the dumpster. I have my own opinions about that, but that's not really what I want to talk about. I just came across a tweet. I came across a tweet from the Edmonton Police Service responding to what they had done. And they said, well, we didn't actually detain anybody, and we didn't send anybody to shelters. We didn't participate in the cleanups. We were simply there to make sure that the parks people who were participating in the cleanups, who were organizing and initiating the cleanups, that they were protected and that they were safe. The issue that I really want to talk about that I have with this tweet, with this whole situation, is the word cleanups. We didn't participate in the cleanups. What cleanups? These are homeless people. This isn't a dirty street. This isn't a road that has been covered in litter and trash. These are people. This is more than cleanups. Now, I understand that they didn't mean anything negative by it, but what I see in this, and I could absolutely be projecting my own guilt, my own shame, my own anger at myself. I could easily be projecting that into this moment. But as far as I see it, the Edmonton Police Service is making exactly the same mistake that I made. They are not seeing these people as people. They're seeing them as a situation. They're seeing them as a problem. They're seeing them as a job. They're seeing them as a box on their to-do list. They're seeing them as a duty, a task, something to be handled and managed. And they're not. They're human beings. They're wonderful, warm human beings. They are God's creatures, just like you and I. And this kind of thing, it can happen to the best of us. It can happen to the best of us in the best situations. You don't just have to be an ass of a 25-year-old to find yourself in that place where you've dehumanized somebody. You can be a person who has the best of intentions, and everything they're doing it out of a sense of love of their fellow human being. And we can find ourselves falling into the trap that we dehumanize those that we are there to help. Instead of seeing them as people we are called to love and called to be with and called to help, we simply see them as the people we're supposed to help. The job. Today's responsibility. We as individuals can't ever let ourselves dehumanize another person. We can't ever allow ourselves to isolate them as that they are the other, that they are aside from us, that they are apart from us, that they are over there. When Jesus tells us to love our neighbor, when he tells us to feed the hungry and give drink to the thirsty, to visit the people in prison, to take care of the sick, the widows, the orphans, to give shelter to the homeless, this isn't just a matter of telling us to make sure that we take care of their physical needs. It's about inclusion as well. Just because a person is living in a tent does not mean they don't want to be included. It doesn't mean that they don't want to be thought of as a human being. It doesn't mean that they don't want to be loved and be in relationship and be connected to others. Jesus tells us to love our neighbors as ourselves, to love each other as he loved us, to feed those without food, to give drink to those without water, to take care of those who have less than we do in some capacity. That love extends beyond the physical. It transcends into the spiritual, into the emotional, into the mental, the relational. When he tells us to take care of people, when he tells us to take care of those around us, when he tells us to take care of those in our communities, he's talking about building our communities and making them stronger by being more inclusive, by bringing more people together. I'm certain the powers that be in Edmonton didn't mean anything malicious by this action, though it is a fairly common practice to to relocate people and to throw their gear away so that when their time comes to be homeless again, they don't have anything and they will move on to greener pastures. Let's not forget that we are all human. Let's not forget that rich and poor alike, well, we are dust, and to dust we shall return. May the Lord bless you. May the Lord keep you. May the Lord's face be made to shine upon you and be gracious to you. May the Lord's countenance be lifted up to you, and may you always know the peace of being in the Lord's presence. And I pray that you'll learn from my story. We are all beautiful, wonderful images of our Creator. Let's remember that. Amen.